There's no interest. There's no hard credit check. There are 4 payments. The first one lands right at checkout, and nobody at your bank ever needs to know about any of it. On paper, that's one of the cheapest ways a household has ever been able to borrow money. So here's the thing we can't square. Why do the people who lean on it the most end up paying more, not less? Let's decode this together. If you've ever hovered over that Pay in 4 button, you already know the feeling it gives you. It isn't excitement. It's relief. Something in your shoulders drops because the number in front of you just got smaller and the decision just got easier, and you can deal with the rest of it later. That feeling is the entire product. Buy Now, Pay Later started as a checkout option for sneakers and electronics. It isn't that anymore. In the United States, annual spending on these plans went from roughly $2 billion to more than $75 billion in about 4 years, and roughly 1 in 5 adults has used one at least once. More of that spending is going toward ordinary, unglamorous things: groceries, car repairs, the utility bill that came in higher than expected. That shift is the whole story, and it says something about household budgets that no headline number really captures. So let's name the mechanism, because it's simpler than it sounds. A Pay in 4 plan splits your purchase into 4 equal installments, usually across 6 weeks, usually with no interest if you pay on time. The company running it makes most of its money from the store, not from you. Because the loan is small and short, most providers only do a soft check, and most of these loans never show up on your traditional credit report at all. That last part matters more than anything else we'll say today. 2 forces push people toward it. The first one is emotional. A credit card feels like debt. It has a balance, a limit, a score attached to it, and a whole cultural weight that says a person carrying one is behind. A payment plan doesn't feel like any of that. Research on this is pretty consistent. People who are close to their credit card limits and people who worry about how borrowing makes them look on paper are more likely to reach for the installment option instead. It feels lighter, even when it isn't. Honestly, our brains are deeply convinced that 4 payments of $25 is a completely different animal from 1 payment of $100. It is not. But we are all very confident about it in the moment. The second force is arithmetic, and it's not gentle. When cash buffers shrink, usage climbs. Researchers looking at homeowners with federally backed mortgages found that when bank deposits drop, installment borrowing goes up in the same period. Same pattern shows up around holidays and after big, unavoidable expenses. When the cushion thins out, this becomes the valve that keeps rent and the mortgage paid on time. None of that is irrational. It's a household doing triage with the tools in front of it. Here's where the contradiction we opened with starts to come apart. Because these plans mostly live outside the credit reporting system, there's no single place that shows you the total. One plan is easy to track. 3 plans opened weeks apart across 3 different apps, each pulling automatically from your debit card on its own schedule, is a completely different situation. The payments don't arrive as one bill on one day. They arrive scattered. And the strain doesn't show up where you'd expect it to. It shows up in your checking account. That's the part worth sitting with. When installments land on a thin balance, what breaks first isn't the plan. It's the overdraft. Then, it's a late fee on the credit card you were also carrying. Surveys have found that a large share of users, more than 4 in 10, missed at least 1 payment somewhere in the past year. The plan itself can look perfectly healthy while the accounts around it quietly get more expensive. Lenders can't see it either. When someone applies for an auto loan or a mortgage, This borrowing usually isn't in the file. Underwriters look at a household and see room that isn't actually there. Research on first-time buyers found that the ones leaning heavily on installment plans were measurably more likely to miss a mortgage payment in that first year, which is exactly the year with the least margin for error. So the cost was never in the interest rate, it was in the visibility. Now let's bring this all the way down into an actual budget. Studies tracking people before and after they start using these plans find the same drift. Overdraft charges go up, credit card interest goes up, late fees go up. Put together, the average user ends up paying somewhere around $176 a year more than they were before. That number is worth understanding not because it's large, but because of how it arrives. Nobody ever gets a bill for it. It comes in pieces, across 3 or 4 accounts that don't look related to each other over 12 months. It's the kind of cost that feels like bad luck instead of a pattern, which is precisely why it goes unnoticed for so long. And that points at the one thing genuinely worth doing here, because it isn't a generic budgeting tip. It comes straight out of how this specific product works. Open the apps and count the active plans. Add up what's actually due over the next 30 days and put that single total somewhere you can see it next to rent and utilities. Not because spending is the problem, because this is the one form of borrowing that doesn't send you a statement, doesn't post to your credit file, and doesn't sit in one place. If it isn't written down, no one is showing it to you. There's no judgment in any of that. A household using a payment plan to get through a hard month is doing something reasonable. It's just easier to steer when you can see the whole dashboard. A few things are worth keeping an eye on as this keeps developing. The first is credit reporting. Some providers have started sharing data with the bureaus, and how that gets standardized will change 2 things at once. These loans would become visible to mortgage and auto lenders, and on-time payments could start building credit for people who currently get nothing for them. The second is the late payment rate. Regulators and the providers themselves publish this. If it keeps climbing while the economy holds steady, that tells us this stopped being a convenience product a while ago. Third, watch what these plans get offered on. When installment options start appearing on recurring bills instead of one-time purchases, that's a signal about household cash flow that's worth taking seriously. So here's the decode. Buy now, pay later isn't expensive because of what it charges. It's expensive because of what it hides, from lenders and from the households using it. The relief at checkout is real, and so is the drift that shows up months later in accounts that never seemed connected. Knowing the total is most of the battle. This story is still moving, especially on the reporting side, and we'll be watching it closely. Quick reminder, everything we cover on Decoded Money is for educational purposes only. None of this is financial advice, and we're not licensed financial advisors. Before you make any money moves, do your own research and talk to someone who knows your specific situation. If this was useful, hit subscribe. We do this every week. That's the decode for this week. We'll see you in the next one.